Hi, my name is Yolis Carrera.
Hi, my name is Tammy Haddad. We're two students at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, doing our master's in urban leadership. And this is our project about public safety and neighborhood revitalization in the Boulder Highway neighborhood. Our goal here is to reduce the heat disparity and negative related health outcomes on Boulder Highway using innovative materials and plants. So temperatures in Las Vegas are rising faster than the rest of the country due to large amounts of pavement and other heat absorbing materials that are not good for the desert. Specifically, we've identified Boulder Highway as, we're not the only ones who have identified it as a very dangerous place. It's a top area for heat-related deaths and for pedestrian deaths. So right now there's actually a lot of focus on it about the pedestrian deaths, but today we're going to be talking more about heat-related issues on that Boulder Highway. So this leads us to our safety implications for Boulder Highway. So there's major funding and efforts being put towards making Boulder Highway safer for pedestrians. Within those efforts and using some of that funding, there should also be efforts put towards cooling down the area by using white colored roofs, green spaces, and other cooling materials that we're going to talk about a little more. So our two main issues that we've identified, and then we have two possible solutions that kind of correlate with our issues here. So the first issue being the temperature in Las Vegas is rising due to building materials like pavement, artificial turf, and concrete. Our proposed solution to that is instead of using artificial turf, we use desert appropriate ground cover plants. And then also that we start utilizing cool technology because it does exist. There's cooling pavement technology and we can install cool roofs. Second issue is looking at vulnerable populations that are being affected even more by this issue. So this is children, older adults, and low-income communities. They're facing health risks due to these rising temperatures. So for these specific populations, we are proposing that all children should have access to green spaces with plant life at schools, parks, and community centers. It shouldn't be artificial turf. And in general, we need to increase the amount of parks, trees, shrubs, and ground cover plants, as well as installing heat shelters with white roofs on bus stops.
So Las Vegas has one of the hottest surface recorded by NASA. So right here, if you look at Boulder Highway, highlighted in the photo to the left, and the red is basically the black asphalt of the roads. And so according to the USPA, the pavement temperatures exceeded over 122 Fahrenheit, and there is a lack of cool pavement initiatives here in Las Vegas. So as of now, Las Vegas isn't really doing anything with cool pavement innovations. Southern Nevada is experiencing one of the hottest and fast warming climates in the US, which is leading to an increase in heat related health incidents. And in 2021, Southern Nevada witnessed 245 heat related fatalities, which surpassed the combined numbers of homicides and traffic deaths. So if you look at the image below, this is from the last couple of years, how in 2010 it was only 46 and in 2021 it's 245. And our area of focus is we're focusing on these three zip codes, 89101, 89104, 8921. And the Southern Nevada Health District reported that these zip codes have the highest related deaths in Southern Nevada. And right here is where Boulder Highway runs through and connects to the three hottest zip codes in Clark County.
The map on the right shows the zip codes being connected by Boulder Highway, and then on the left, it's a map of Clark County by zip code, and it's showing that in 89101 and 89104, there was 10 to 12 heat deaths, and then 89121, there was 6 to 9 in the year 2023. Our first case study, so we're looking within those zip codes. We're looking at a Boys and Girls Club on Boulder Highway. So at this Boys and Girls Club in 2020, there was just a dirt lot, and these images are from Google Maps. So moving on in 2022, they grew some grass, lovely. It was one of the only green spaces in the neighborhood. And then in 2023, the Boys and Girls Club, they received a donation from the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation and Reebok, and they got 6,000 square feet of artificial turf. They paid for removing that grass and putting in this artificial turf, which is lovely and wonderful for playing sports. Unfortunately, that is probably contributing to the heat disparity in the area. So on this slide, I'm going to explain some of the detrimental effects of hot materials. So we're talking about artificial turf and pavement in Las Vegas and those vulnerable populations that are specifically affected by the hot materials. So starting with artificial turf. Artificial turf can warm the body temperature of players and children to a harmful level. Children are more vulnerable to heat stroke. Pavement. So in Las Vegas, pavement can burn the skin in just a few seconds when the temperature outside is above 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Pavement burns are a region-specific problem affecting Las Vegas and other urban heat islands. These issues are affecting our vulnerable populations. There's more vulnerable populations than the two that I'm specifically focusing on here, but for the purposes of this project, we're talking about children. So children are vulnerable to burning their skin on pavement just because they might not know, they have unawareness. And children are also at risk for learning loss or decreased learning due to the heat exposure. People in poverty are also vulnerable here. So people that live below the poverty line are more likely to live in areas that receive the worst effects of the urban heat island. So we are focusing on this census block for our project. We identified the census block using the Tree Equity Score National Explorer. It's a website that shows tree coverage in your city. So this specific block, they divide it up by census blocks. This is in the zip code 89121. There's a little less than 500 people living here according to the last census. 92%, so we have over half of the people are people of color and over half of the people are living in poverty. It is 5 degrees hotter in this block than it is in other areas of Las Vegas. So in this block, you can see 2 artificial turf play areas for kids. In the bottom image here from Google Maps in 2024, it's a more recent image than the Tree Equity Explorer. You can see we have Matter Academy, and they have a large artificial turf. And then there's also the Boys and Girls Club that has that artificial turf that they just got from the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation. And then while we're on this slide, I wanted to point out we're going to be talking about some stakeholders, but these apartment complexes you see in the map we're going to be talking about those as Boulder Pines Apartments. And then you can also see Lutheran Social Services of Nevada, which we have a comment from them later on.
So we are going to see another case study conducted by Los Angeles. So there's a circled spot right here in the thermal image where they highlighted where the hottest area in Los Angeles was. And they conducted a case study called the Cool Neighborhood Pilot Program. And basically, they implemented several cool pavement pilot projects in Los Angeles to help cool neighborhoods. Urban heat islands are caused in urban areas due to the thermal energy dynamics of materials like concrete, which leads to lower quality of air, higher energy and water demands, and more heat-related casualties. And the pilot program conducted in Los Angeles, they actually applied thermal resistant paint, which is white, and applied it to the streets at risk for high heat. And there is a 10 to 12 Fahrenheit difference between the areas they painted and did not paint on street level compared to the neighborhood level. And it cooled down 2 degrees.
this is a map of all the stakeholders in our areas that we've defined. Starting with the latents, these are people that have very high influence in our issue, but maybe low interest. Starting with the US Department of Transportation, we've identified them as a stakeholder because they just started a project with Boulder Highway called Reimagine Boulder Highway, and they're putting millions of dollars into transforming that area to be safer for pedestrians. Next, we have Walmart. So later on in these slides, we're going to show Walmart is a corporation in the area and in Las Vegas that has shown that they're looking at taking initiatives towards saving energy and, taking more green measures. So we've identified them as a stakeholder. Next, the Las Vegas Valley Water District. They are definitely a stakeholder in this situation because when we're talking about plants and irrigation, we have to make sure that there is enough water and they're approved plants by the water district. Next, University of Nevada, Reno Extension. They serve our Southern Nevada area. They have a team of master gardeners that do experiments to see what type of plants are most appropriate for our desert climate. And last one in the latents category, the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation. So the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation is one example of a philanthropic group that puts money into an area, but they might not necessarily know all of the different dimensions of their decision in the area. So like by putting in that artificial turf, they did help with one thing, but it would be important to advise groups like this of heat issues. Yeah, when they're putting in artificial turf. I'm going to move down to the apathetics category, which is people with low influence in this issue and also low interest, like they don't know and they don't really care. So there's two stakeholders that we actually did talk to. We're going to see coming up in the slides. The first one is called EG Reliance Motors. There's a local business on Boulder Highway. There's a lot of car dealerships in that area. So they're mechanics and car dealers there. And then we also talked to Lutheran Social Services, which is a church and a food bank that's pretty close to that Boys and Girls Club.
And the promoters that have a high influence and high interest is the RTC. And essentially, this is the public transportation here in Las Vegas, and they're responsible for implementing the bus stops around the area. So they're a very important stakeholder, which will help us with our initiative. The city of Las Vegas actually controls the sidewalks if plants can be planted near bus stops or trees. And the Southern Nevada Health District is responsible for essentially coming up with a lot of resolutions, like if there's heat disparities, they report how many deaths there are in the area. And the UMC Lions Burns Center is an area where people go to in case they get burned. And the Sunrise Hospital, same thing. People could go there if there's a heat-related incident. And the Boulder Highway Boys and Girls Club is a place where a lot of youth go to play, and one of our area of focus that do have the artificial turf, and we're recommending a solution to that. And the Boulder Pines Apartments, there is a lot of residents within that area that the students do go to the Boys and Girls Club and Matter Academy. And Matter Academy, there is youth around the area. And the Defenders is a low influence and high interest area. So these are local government officials of the area that care about the people's well-being.
Yeah, so Ricardo Torres, he's published a lot of different articles about pedestrian deaths on Boulder Highway. And then Rhiannon Saggart, she reports more on climate issues like the urban heat island effect in Las Vegas.
One of our stakeholders is Matter Academy, and I spoke with Selena Torres. She is a teacher at Matter Academy and assemblywoman for the city, and she believes students would benefit from our recommendations into these zip codes. So when speaking to her, she said that there is a need for green spaces in urban areas, and she recently spoke to the city of Las Vegas, and they just received the grants to basically plant trees in urban areas. And county commissioner gave trees to East Las Vegas residents for that purpose for developing green spaces.
Okay, the next stakeholder that we talked to was in that apathetics category. It's EG Reliance Motors and their local business car dealership and mechanic on Boulder Highway. So I spoke with the building manager and the owner of EG Reliance Motors. So the first question I asked was if they knew anybody who had gotten a burn from pavement in Las Vegas, and the building manager let me know that all of his kids burnt themselves in PE class when they were doing PE class on the artificial turf. And he told me that they went to a charter school. The next question I asked was if they thought that cooling pavement technology and plant life would help the area. And that's when I actually, the owner remembered, so he actually sent me these pictures. When they were applying to get their business license from the city of Las Vegas, they were not able to get it, and the city made them put in these wood chips and bushes in order to get their business license. So that's why they even have these pictures, because they had to give them to the city of Las Vegas, and they were so nice to also give them to me. And that business owner, he let me know that he thought it was actually kind of annoying at the time and he didn't understand why. But after I had this conversation with them, he was like, oh yeah, I can see why that we needed to put these plants and why they might be making an effort in this area. Next, I talked with the property manager at Boulder Pines Apartments. So Boulder Pines Apartments, they are actually an affordable housing unit by Nevada Hand. So when speaking to this property manager, I asked her if she knew that artificial turf is so hot, it gets up to 165 degrees. She said no, and then she remembered that they have a small patch of grass in their apartment complex. And she let me know, she said that she didn't understand why it was grass and not artificial turf, but she said it makes sense now that, we realize that it can be kind of dangerous. Next, I asked her if there's enough areas in that neighborhood for kids to play. And she said that other than that small grassy area, there's not really any other parks. And she said the next one would be driving distance, but the families and her residents, they don't have cars all the time, so it's too far for them to drive. She said Mater Academy, which is just, down the way, they have a large field of artificial turf, and there's no coverings or no awnings for those kids there. She said it concerns her because she knows they don't go to school in the summer, but it's still hot at the start and the end of the school year. And she also let me know about the Boys and Girls Club, and they had just put in that new artificial turf. She did agree that putting innovative cooling technology and more plants would definitely help the area, because there's seniors and families and children that are walking in the area. And if it's the hottest area, it is affecting them, unfortunately.
So another stakeholder that Tammy and I reached out to was the University of Nevada, Reno Extension, and we spoke with the botanical garden manager, Lauren McGee, and she said that the Boys and Girls Club is working with the Southern Nevada Arturist Group to basically implement some shade trees in their property to help cool it down.
Lauren McGee actually let us know, she gave us a few recommendations for plant alternatives that are suited for the desert. So the first and her strongest recommendation was the microclover, which is, she recommended it because it can withstand tread. So the kids playing and walking, and also it can withstand pet urine. She let us know the only place to get it is a retailer called Valley Sod Farms. She gave some other alternatives called Carapia and Creeping Thyme, which we are going to see in the next couple slides here.
So another stakeholder that we spoke with was RTC, and I spoke with Paul Gilly. He is the principal transportation planner for the city, and he was kind enough to give me a 30-minute interview. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse of his thoughts of some of the recommendations that we spoke about. So I asked him what his thoughts on white roofs on bus stops were or on buildings. And he said basically cool roofs are out of their purview and something that they have not looked or studied at, but they're very interested on the impacts of cool roofs here in Las Vegas. And he said he probably thinks that it could help reduce the temperatures of buildings, which might reduce the energy needed to run air conditioning. And he said that he doesn't believe it's been studied enough in our region and in climates similar to ours. And he said right now they're not testing white colored roofs at any bus stops. And that's something that he really thought they might take, they're interested in looking at. So that's something I recommended the ROTC to do. And he said that's something that he's very interested in to look at. And another thing I asked him was, what is our RTC doing to help fight extreme heat in Las Vegas? And he said basically they're prioritizing putting slim line bus shelters in areas where it's the hottest in the valley and that don't already have a bus stop. And I also asked him what his thoughts on cool payment were. And he said that he had mixed results because he and other people looked at other cities like Phoenix and Los Angeles. And he said while it could lower pavement surface temperatures, researchers did not find any corresponding drop in air temperature. So he believes installing white roofs on structures like bus stops seems to have a more promising result in reducing local temperatures based on the research discussed.
On this slide, we have some quotes from other stakeholders. So I spoke with an employee at Lutheran Social Services. She talked about the amount of homeless people that they serve at their food bank and how it would help them. I also have two other quotes. They're from different research studies. So one's from Make the Road, Nevada, an employee there called Rico Ocampo. He said that East Las Vegas is lacking in green spaces that would help reduce the heat island effect, improve air quality, and contribute to long-term health improvements. Next is a quote from Dr. Syed Saqib. He is a doctor and he does research on pavement burns at the UMC Lions Burn Center, which is a stakeholder we mentioned earlier. We see a lot of pavement burn cases from people with diabetes who have a loss of sensation in their feet and children who run barefoot on hot surfaces before a caregiver can pick them up. So based on all those issues that we just outlined, we have 3 recommendations to improve the zip codes in Boulder Highway. Our first recommendation is desert-friendly ground cover plants. Our second recommendation is building heat shelters with white roofs. And the third recommendation is to utilize cooling building materials. So our first recommendation, which is installing those desert-friendly ground cover plants. Our recommendation would be to replace the artificial turf at Matter Academy and the Boys and Girls Club, which you can see we have 2 pictures of, with desert appropriate ground cover plants, which would be the microclover that Lauren McHugh recommended. These ground cover plants help reduce the temperature of the ground, making it cooler for children to play on. Artificial turf is often seen as a water-efficient solution to provide for playgrounds. However, the heating effects of artificial turf are detrimental. Typical turf grass is not native to our country and highly discouraged by water authorities in southern Nevada. That means we need special ground cover plants for the desert. And so we have these 3 right here that are viable options to traditional turf grass. We have the microclover, Carapia, and creeping thyme.
Our second recommendation is building heat shelters with white roofs. So we're going to encourage the RTC to paint bus stop roofs white since they absorb less heat compared to darker colors. And as of now, the ROTC is planning on installing slimline bus stops in 8911, 8904, and 8921 to help combat heat. So this is an example how the white paint helps absorb less heat. So basically, the solar reflectance can influence the surface temperature. And the strip on the brick wall is 5 to 10 Fahrenheit cooler compared to the dark areas. So this strip of white paint, this is a normal photo and this is a thermal photo. And where the white paint, it's absorbing less heat compared to the areas around it. So we're going to look at a white roof example. So white is a color that absorbs less heat, and there's a photo that is below, and it's a Walmart building from the Walmart corporate website. And there is a white roof right here. And basically there's little skylights above it, which help reduce energy use, lower heat island effect. And with these skylights, Walmart saves about 800,000 kilowatts per hour. And if you see the photo to the right, there's three little houses with different colored roofs. And I got this photo from the US EPA. So with the black roof, that's 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and it has a lower solar reflectance and high emittance rate. And the metal roof is 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and it has a high solar reflectance and a low emittance rate. And then the last house has a white roof and it's 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's very high reflectance and high emittance. And the third recommendation is utilizing cooling building materials. So essentially, using cool pavement technology can reduce the surface temperatures of roads and parking lots. And these cool pavement reflect more sunlight and absorb less heat compared to the traditional asphalt. If you look here to the photo to the left, the asphalt pavements compared to the concrete pavements, this is the solar reflectance in percentages. So the asphalt is reflecting less compared to the cool concrete here above, compared to like the photo I showed you in the previous slide. So there's benefits to cooling pavements. So according to the EPA, adding cool paving technology can significantly reduce the surface temperatures of roads and sidewalks, and the lifespan of cooling paving technology can also last longer than traditional asphalt, which is more cost efficient. So if we look here to the left, we're going to look at cool concrete. So the life cycle for cool concrete is 15 to 35 years compared to the traditional cool asphalts below. It's only 7 to 10 years. So we are recommending that Matter Academy, Boys and Girls Club, or local businesses use cool concrete or porous concrete, because even though it might not lower the heat temperature, but like for the air, but it could help reduce the heat when you touch it. So if a kid falls, they're not going to burn their hand as much compared to the traditional asphalt.
Mhm. In conclusion, these recommendations will help reduce heat disparity and heat-related negative health outcomes on Boulder Highway using our three recommendations: the innovative materials, heat shelters with white roofs, and desert-friendly ground plants.